Last week, this old clapped out piece of shit frame was up in the rafters of my old shop, living its best retired life. Its life and time as an abused mountain bike was over until I put it back together with my suite of incompatible ragtag group of spare mountain bike parts. Because despite the current complete implosion of the mountain bike industry, all of the deals, all those crazy deals that you'll see on like new mountain bike frame sets that are really marked down, a lot of those, almost all of them, are barred from being shipped into Canada where I live, or the discounts are on a product that was already so expensive to begin with that even at the discount, it's like outside of my... Just because something's 50% off, it's still $4,000 or $5,000. Like, I can't spend that on a frame. Come on. Come on. Now, this whole thing started as I was getting the itch to put together a 160mm travel Enduro Bro rig with my spare parts to complement my steel, single pivot, single speed, gyro-equipped bike park machine. And I actually did some racing last year on this thing when it was built up as more of a trail bike, and I really enjoyed that. And I want to do more of that this year, so I want to have something that's built up, ready to go for when Enduro and East Coast downhill events do pop up, and I can make it to them. So, as you know from episode 1, the initial catalyst for thinking I could feasibly build another bike for cheap was the alluring sale price of the specialized status frame sets on all kinds of websites. But when you select shipping to Canada, shut it down. All right, tried for a discounted Norco? Nope. Rocky Mountain? The Santa Cruz? No. Now, don't be a marnus and come at me in the comments for using B-roll of a complete bike that's on sale there. I simply just wanted to illustrate that those brands at those wild 40, 50% discounts are not available to us in Canada. Like, we can't just grab them like you guys easily can. It's not the way it works. It doesn't work that way. But what I find more annoying and more to the point of my story here is that even with the mountain bike industry right-sizing, everyone kind of agreeing that boost spacing is good, threaded bottom brackets are good, and geometry is all kind of converging into a spot that we've all agreed upon enjoying. Mountain bikes these days, when you compare them between a lot of brands, they're all pretty similar, that none of these brands are willing to offer an affordable, everyman's full suspension frame set for maybe you're upgrading your hardtail up to a full suspension, you want to bring your parts over, or you're someone like me who just has some spare parts that you want to throw onto something and then tinker on as time goes on. Or you're just someone who likes to build a bike from the frame up and you don't have like dentist salary. You ain't got dentist money. Whatever affordable, simple linkage frame set any brand could offer to us would be leaps and bounds superior to this old clapped out garbage I've built up here. And this thing, despite how haggard and cobbled together it is, still kind of rips. So we're gonna go ride this thing, and I'm gonna prove to you that despite this being an old clapped out frame not using the most modern of high pivot linkages in the rear here, that it's still plenty capable, and prove that a new frame with modern standards, modern geometry, doesn't have to have the most cutting edge of technologies on it. It can kind of just exist as a simple frame for simple builds that will work for the majority of us riders. And I decided that the granite-covered trails of Macintosh Run and the backlands of Purcell's Cove was the place to do this test. I started riding mountain bikes here on this frame, so it only makes sense to come visit again on this build. You know, for the age of this thing, it's almost 12 years old now, so dated geometry. And for how hastily and quickly with incompatible parts this thing was put together, it's kind of annoyingly good. Like, surprising and annoying. Incompatible parts this thing was put together, it's kind of annoyingly good. Like, there is nothing out here that I'm riding up to that I've been riding on more modern bikes these days and being like, oh, this thing's a little old and feels a little bizarre. I've got second thoughts about what I'm about to do. No, I just literally ride down it like I always have. I mean, it makes sense. I did start riding mountain bikes on this frame set, so there's a lot of muscle memory there. But I do feel like going up to a 29 650B mullet setup from the 26s that this originally was is also a huge improvement. Just the rollover is way better. That was kind of cool. Now, another pretty noteworthy thing that has made this frame with this build on it feel better than it really ever has is the fact that these Dior brakes work so much better than the old worn out Elixirs ever did. See, oh, I think I could get up this. Sorry, that thought wandered a bit. I love trying to get up stuff like this. This is terrible advice, but all you need to get up stuff like this is go as fast as possible and just smash up it and do a bunny hop about halfway up. Should get you right to the top. A much better person with words than me has said, when in doubt, throttle it out. There you go. Doesn't need to be graceful, just needs to be done. Things like this are definitely part of the fun of riding this trail. There's just so many big granite rocks and boulders everywhere that you either roll down, which I think this is really the idea of this, or you just kind of powerhouse your way to punch climb up this. And now I'm looking at these rocks, look like they've been put here to rock roll down this. So I'm gonna do that too. It's fun to just like stop and kind of session stuff. It like opens your eyes to other lines you maybe would never have seen because you're riding just so fast everywhere. All right. I haven't gone down this kind of since I've been riding other bikes than this one. This bike kind of is the perfect bike for in here because the bottom bracket's so high and there is so many rocks that you just kind of have to navigate around. It's kind of nice to have just a little bit of space between the bottom bracket and well, all the rocks that are out here. One thing I'm noticing that I don't think I ever really noticed before is that with the really wallowed out, clapped out nature of the rear suspension of this now, everything feels super harsh. Like it feels like every time the rear suspension has to start working, like it feels like every time I go up something like that, where the suspension compresses, rebounds, and then goes to get up whatever feature you're gonna go up, it kind of gives that sensation of like hitting rim. You know, when you come up short on something or you're too low on tire pressure, you smack your rim. It feels like that. And I kind of theoretically put it down to like the dead space that's in there from everything being so clapped out that it makes it up really quick, goes kabang, and then the suspension starts working, and it's very jarring. I don't, yeah, it's not pleasant. I don't like it at all. But if you can keep the bike on the ground away from that dead clapped out space, it feels fine. It's just, usually that's not how you ride. So it's just unpleasant. The suspension on this thing is simply unpleasant. Ugh. So, unsurprisingly, for the second ride that I've done on this thing with all the random parts that are thrown onto it, it was plenty capable and did not hold me back from any of the features at Macintosh Run whatsoever. Surprisingly though, the chain retention on this not narrow wide chain, just this random single speed chainring, had been really, really good for the entire ride. That is, until it just kind of wasn't.
Okay, the chain has started to fall off this chain ring. It's done it a couple times now. That was the first time it came off going forward, and I'm kind of not sure why. There's kind of the annoying mechanical chain dropping that I was expecting when I originally built this. Okay, that needs to be fixed. It definitely just doesn't like that big 50 tooth. Frig. So it's every gear now.
So, as expected, my weakest link, although way better for the time it was working than I expected, well, it has begun to drop chains and fail to an unacceptable level for a bike ride. Which again, fair play, not a narrow wide. It was really good for the first two rides, just right at the end there. It really didn't want to hold on to the chain anymore. It's kind of interesting. But the frame and the whole build, for what it is, A+. You gotta love that. For a bike that I put together for zero monies, $0. Just about as much fun as anything else I ride. And here is the fun part. Because episode 1 of doing this build to expose the mountain bike industry for not having an affordable full suspension frame with modern standards on it did so well, I actually have budget. Like I have some money to get like a crankset and a chain ring, maybe a couple other things to improve this a little bit for episode 3. So that's kind of cool. And as much as I know you might be getting attached to this old crappy frame, this has already had its linkage bearings rebuilt like a couple months before I gave up on this bike. And it actually didn't fix the clapped out problem. And the idea of putting like an angle headset in this or something, the money to try and change the head tube angle of this and the inability to actually get rid of the knocking around of the linkage on this thing means I'm not going to put any money into this frame. If this episode does well, well, I just might have to go down that rabbit hole of getting a specialized status. And there's a big reason why I want that bike in particular. And it is simply because Specialized currently is the only company that has released a frame only option that isn't like $2,500 US or something crazy like that. When the Status originally came out, this, what I assume is the first generation of Status, it was $1,200 for the frame with a shot. That's a really good price. It's not $600, but it's definitely one of the best offerings you can get. And they're selling them right now for $750. And as much as we all love to sit here and complain that things are too expensive, the easiest and most effective way to signal to a company what you want from them is by voting with your dollar. And I think right now in the mountain bike industry, there is a lot of people buying the more expensive stuff. And if they keep selling the more expensive stuff, it signals to them that they don't need to make something more affordable. They can just push out the more expensive stuff and not worry about us. So if we're not even buying frame sets that are on sale for $750, why would they ever do a regular price one at, well, $750, honestly. So I think it's pretty important if a brand does step up to give us something affordable that we return the favor by actually buying it. So that's what I want to do. And hopefully you're into it. I don't know. Anyway, episode 3, we're going to upgrade this with some a lot more compatible parts. I'll say that. At least that's what I have in my head right now. Yeah.